Hey guys, welcome to an interesting video on Wild Rift. So today we're back with a Vayne supplementary guide, and we're going to be talking about the Vayne top rank loadout. So pretty much all of the top 10 Vaynes, I normally look at only the top 10, so perhaps the top 20, 30, etc. But the top 10 Vaynes all use Storm Razor as the first item, and we're going to go through the build and exactly why. But before we do that, of course, as usual, don't forget to take a look at Vayne's basic guide for her skills, leveling order tips and tricks, as well as combos, which I will link up in the cards above. So let's jump straight into talking about the items. So pretty much my normal Vayne build I built is going to look something like this, and the main change from my build to this build is basically the addition of Storm Razor and maybe IE as well. So let's talk about the changes. So Storm Razor, is it good on Vayne? From my testing, I found out that it is really good on Vayne. I think this might actually be, or this probably is, Vayne's best build. Now, why is Storm Razor so good on Vayne? Like, it always has been an item that Vayne can kind of build, but you don't always really build it. So why is it good? Well, it's good for a couple of reasons. The first reason is, we all know that Vayne generally does really well into tanky targets, but she doesn't necessarily do that well into squishy targets, because after all, you do true damage on your W, and the true damage on tanks is going to be so much better than the true damage on squishies, because you don't really do a lot of damage from your auto attacks. A lot of your damage comes from your W 3-hit passive, which is why you're a little bit worse against squishy targets. Now Storm Razor kind of solves that problem by basically giving you that energized attack, which gives you that bonus magic damage, and it's gonna hurt against squishy targets quite significantly. So it also works really well because of the slow. So Vayne, of course, you know, is all about movement speed, wants to move in and out of a fight, wants to kite around. So the movement speed slow works really well on both squishies as well as tanky targets. So of course the starting stats is also really good. You get AD, crit, as well as attack speed, all kind of stats that Vayne loves. Of course Vayne loves attack speed and lifesteal the most, which is why we go for Berserker's Greaves as our boot enchant. Of course giving us 30% attack speed. Now honestly, Vayne already has enough attack speed with Lethal Tempo combined with Storm Razor, Phantom Dancer, and Blade of the Rune King. So you don't necessarily have to go for Berserker's Greaves. You can actually go for other boot options as well. You could go for Gluttonous Greaves if you want lifesteal earlier on in your build, because you do have lifesteal later on in your build as well. So that may not be needed. So honestly, you could go for defensive boots. They're probably really good options. Both defensive boots are really good options to go for on Vayne, because you already have enough attack speed and enough Omnivamp, or lifesteal, I guess you could say. So going for the defensive boots are actually really good. But the main reason why you go for Berserker's Greaves early is because although you do have enough attack speed eventually, at this point in time, getting this huge spike in attack speed with like 30% extra attack speed, and that 30% attack speed costs you 1400 gold, is a really strong power spike in the early game, which is why Berserker's Greaves is still really good. So the long and short of it is, you can either go for Berserker's Greaves or one of the defensive boots, depending on the situation and your personal preference. So next up we go for Phantom Dancer. Phantom Dancer is basically the item in the game that gives the most attack speed. Of course, when you stack it up to 4 times, gives you a total of 55% attack speed. Of course, gives you movement speed, crit, as well as attack, a little bit of attack damage. Of course, attack speed and movement speed stats that Vayne loves. So next up, more attack speed on Blade of the Rune King. You also get the other stat Vayne loves, which is the physical vamp, and of course you get the Ruin Strikes passive, which gives you on-hit damage for enemies' current health, even more useful to you know, destroy tanks. And of course the Drain passive works really similar to the Storm Razor passive, where it basically gives a slow and gives a burst of damage. So this works really well on both tanky and squishy targets. And then we move into Bloodthirster, which is a pure physical vamp item. Gives you a lot of course, physical vamp over shield as well, and gives you a ton of AD and crit. So for your last item, you actually have a couple options. Now you could opt into defensive options such as a GA. You could even go for Twin Guard. I found that honestly, I still think Twin Guard is really good on Vayne, because most of the time when you reach last item, you don't actually need any more damage. So I normally like to go for Twin Guard or GA, that kind of defensive options. But if you want pure damage, IE is going to be amazing. Why? Because you already have 3 crit items. You have your Storm Razor, you have your Phantom Dancer, you have your Bloodthirster. So just tossing in your IE there is going to put you to 100% crit, and of course give you even more AD. And this is going to help you destroy squishy targets as well. Because when you have this much crit, you know, you're going to kill squishy targets just as easily as, you know, tanks when you're Vayne. So for the runes, it's pretty obvious. You obviously want to go for Lethal Tempo for the attack speed, no other options here. I've seen some people go for Kraken Slayer, but I don't like it personally that much because you don't really get a lot of attack damage until your last 2 items, so you really don't benefit from that all that much. And the true damage from your W is already enough. Brutal for the on-hit damage helps especially against squishy targets. Coup de grace of course works against enemies that are pretty low HP. Now you could also go for Giant Slayer if you're into many tanks, which is going to be pretty often if you're picking Vayne, so you know, that could be an option as well. But most of the time I like to go for Coup de grace because I think Vayne doesn't have an issue with tanks, you know, and true damage doesn't increase with Giant Slayer anyways, so I like to go for Coup de grace to deal with the squishier targets. And then I like to go for Bloodline for the Omnivam. As I mentioned, you already have enough attack speed in your build, so you don't really need Alacrity here, but you could go for that if you like. And finally, I like to go for Bone Plating to get an easier lane, because Vayne in lane is really bad, so getting Bone Plating is going to help with the situation by quite a significant amount. And finally, for the spells, we go for Ghost and we go for Flash 100% of the time. Exhaust isn't really useful on Vayne in my opinion. I think getting the mobility from Ghost is going to be so much more important than the exhaust. But with all that said, let's jump into talking about our gameplay. Okay, so into the gameplay, I don't really think I need to say this, you know, too much anymore. But generally, you want to pick not Morgana. What am I talking about? You want to pick Vayne into a tanky team, because that's really where Vayne shines. Even with the Stormrazor, Vayne doesn't really shine against squishies, at least in my opinion. She really only shines in matches where you face tanky targets. So in this case, we have like a Malphite and we have like a Swain. So I thought that, you know, picking Vayne would be a relatively good idea. They're not the tankiest team in the world. They don't have like, you know, 3 tanks or anything like that, but I think 2 tanks is kind of the minimum for you picking Vayne. And you know, I felt like playing Vayne in this game, so I did basically. This lane is also not too bad. Jhin is really aggressive in the early game. If we get rooted by Morgana, we're probably dead, but overall it's just a little bit of poke from Morgana, a little bit of poke from the Jhin. We have a Nami to heal us, so we should be fine. Vayne generally wants to play with an Enchanter to buff her up, because playing with an Engager is pretty useless, especially in the early game, because you can never really win fights anyway, so you don't want your Engager to go in. In fact, a lot of times if you play with like a Leona, Nautilus, or whatnot, it could, like, they could be baited to go in, and then they realize that, you know, you both end up dying or something like that because you don't really win the fight. So the most you can do is short traits like this. You try to get a 3-hit passive on, and here you can see short trait doesn't even work out because I get rooted. I go for another, now it becomes an all-in. So here Morgana is like really low, and somehow I get the first blood, which is pretty funny. I mean, if you guys want to know how that happened, it's pretty simple. It's basically because the Morgana and the Jhin was not coordinated. I was just hitting the whole time, whereas Jhin tried to run away while Morgana was still trying to fight. So the only reason why I got the kill there is because Jhin decided to stop attacking us, and you know, me and Nami are still hitting on Morgana, and Morgana just takes too much damage and she dies because Jhin just walked away. So we only really got the kill there because of the lack of coordination from the enemy team. Anyways, here you can see Diana is in the area, so we do want to, of course, play carefully. I mean, honestly, whether Diana is in the area or not, you always want to play carefully as Vayne, because as I mentioned, Vayne has a really weak early game. So anyways, here we're just waiting for the wave to push into us, and then we're just gonna pretty much collect the wave. We can never really compete in terms of wave clear, because Vayne is one of the worst wave clears in terms of all ADCs. Probably it's like Vayne and Ezreal have like the worst wave clears out of all ADCs, and Jhin is one of the best wave clears out of all ADCs, and Morgana with the pool, also incredible wave clear. We're never gonna get parity, we're never gonna push, so you know, that's all we're gonna do. So here, for some reason, I thought that I was backing, but apparently I was not, so I'm not sure what happened here. But anyways, regardless, I'm just going to be a little bit delayed on the back, which might make me lose a minion or two, which pretty unfortunate, but you know, it is what it is, and we're just gonna you know, walk back to the lane. So you can see that despite having a kill on Jhin, you can see that because Jhin is able to just push minions and such, he actually has the same amount of gold as me right now, despite being a kill down. Of course, this is also because I pretty much lost one entire wave to the tower because of that lack of a back just now, which was yeah, a complete disaster basically. But we are able to get back to lane, and we do have a slight lead on Jhin, of course, but that's because we're collecting the wave now, and when he gets the wave, he's going to be about even again. So you can see, you know, collecting early kills on Vayne is going to be amazing, but it is not going to get you a huge lead majority of the time. Now, of course, there are those kind of random matches where like a huge fight happens in the lane, like the junglers come and such, and there are the situations where you get like 3 kills in lane, and those are the kind of games that when that happens, the game is pretty much over, because if you give like Vayne like 3 kills at the beginning of the game, you know, Vayne's gonna be scaling so quickly into like her items, and it's really hard to lose those kind of games. Of course, it can happen, but you know, those kinds of games are the ones that you are supposed to carry, and those are the kinds of games that, you know, you can easily pick up the victory. So here, because Morgana's not around, we're able to like not really bully the Jhin, but we're able to force the wave in, and we are able to get a good reset for Stormrazor. Of course, as I mentioned, Stormrazor is a really good item for Vayne, especially against the squishy targets. Hopefully we can, you know, see an example of that on like the Jhin or Morgana soon. But Morgana is like roaming mid. Like, this is the second time she roamed mid. I'm not sure why. I don't really need to ping it because I'm pretty sure Yone can see her, so, you know, no big deal here. But this pretty much means that, you know, me and Nami can actually bully Jhin, and I think that this is honestly a mistake from the Morgana, because you don't want to give Vayne a free lane, and you want to always like threaten her or make it at least difficult for her to farm. Like, you may not be able to kill her all the time, but you want to make it as difficult for her as possible. Now here we end up having lane parity, and we're able to actually roam down to the fight in the middle lane, because Jhin is of course unable to clear fast enough. So here we're gonna ult, and we're gonna go onto the Swain, which is of course a really tanky target, but you can see here with the true damage we can easily finish him off. Now we're going onto Morgana, we get another kill onto Morgana, we're going onto Jhin next. Jhin pops the flash and you know, hops away, tries to ult us down. Accuracy is completely off point, and we're able to actually secure two more kills, or actually it's 1 more kill. I think Morgana kill was secured by Nami, unfortunately, but we get the kills and we get the dragon as well, and you know, we're of course getting a hit. So once again, I think that this all came from a mistake in coordination from the enemy team. I don't know why Morgana was roaming down to the mid lane. So of course, you do have those kind of games when the enemy team is making mistakes, and you know, you capitalize on them, and you get a lead in that way. You know, obviously you can't control the enemy team, so if they're gonna make mistakes, they're gonna make mistakes. You're just gonna be happy about it. But of course, also those kind of games where opponents play well, and you know, it's really difficult time for you. Thankfully, we do have a pretty easy time in lane at the moment. Morgana has pretty much given up on the Jhin now. She's now in the mid lane. I'm actually pinging missing because she's out of vision, so enemy team, my team, sorry, may not know that she's not there, not here, I guess you could say. But here we push out the lane. We're gonna back. Here you can see I'm actually getting the magic defense boots instead of going for Berserker's Greaves, and obviously the reason I'm going for that is we have Diana, Swain, and Morgana as 3 big damage sources. Now Malphite is of course building tank, but if he built AP, he would be like a 4th source of AP damage. So I think there's huge value for Merc Treads in this particular game, which is why I decided to go for the Merc Treads instead of going for the Berserker's Greaves. So they're gonna give me so much value. It's gonna help me not get one shot by like Diana. It's gonna help me be able to tank Swain's damage while killing him, because obviously the kind of issue with the Vayne versus Swain matchup is for Vayne to kill Swain, Vayne has to be inside Swain's ulti where Swain can lifesteal from you, and it's gonna do a lot of damage to you over time and heal him a lot over time. So you have to be able to out DPS his damage and healing at the same time. So getting the Merc Tread is gonna help in that a lot as well. So here both Jhin and Morgana have roamed to mid lane this time, and now I'm basically just in the lane myself. You can see them roaming back up actually. So here I'm just trying to go for 1 plate. And because Morgana is stuck with Nami in the river, I'm actually going for a 2nd plate, because it's gonna be a 1v1 with me and Jhin, and I'm not too scared of the Jhin at the moment. Nami wave almost actually hits him, but unfortunately does not actually connect. Because I'm 2-0-1 at the moment. I have, of course, my Stormrazor. Jhin does have the Collector though, so he's pretty scary as well. But you know, he's playing really timidly because obviously his Morgana's not with him. So once again, I think Morgana's kind of trolling her team. But you know, we're just gonna take advantage of whatever we can. You know, a lot of the game is also not just playing well, but also knowing what to do when in response to the enemy. Like, it's not a typical lane where it's a 2v2. You know, if the enemy support roams away, you want to take advantage of that, and you want to be aggressive, and you know, you want to, of course, you know, just basically do what you need to and do what you must, you know, in the given situation. So here Morgana is now back, so you can see that we're now backing off. We're not playing hyper aggressively against the Jhin anymore, because now it's back to a 2v2. But of course, you know, we have 2 kills and an assist in the bag, so we should be stronger in the 2v2 despite Jhin having a stronger early game, although it will be close. Like a late game champion that's fed early versus a strong early game champion is still going to be, you know, a relatively close fight a lot of the time. And yeah. So I didn't really talk about boot enchant, but before we talk about that, let's get into this fight here. Morgana overextends a little bit. I'm popping the ulti. I'm, you know, attacking Morgana down. She's gone down. Now we're chasing onto the Jhin. Unfortunately, Jhin is able to escape. He's popping the ult to try to clear the minions. So here, me and Nami are just body blocking the ult to prevent him from killing the minion wave, because without the minions, we can't kill the tower. Now that we've gotten the tower, you know, I'm popping the ghost. I have my passive movements. We condemn him into the wall, get the auto attacks in, and secure the kill onto Jhin. So 4-0 and 1 now. Really fed, really ahead as a Vayne now. And this is gonna be a match that I'm supposed to carry because I'm so far ahead as a late game champion in the early game. Now just look at my goal. I have 8k gold at the moment, and look at someone else. I look at like for example, like Diana's like she has like 4k gold. Jhin has like 6k gold. I'm like 2k gold ahead of like basically anybody in the game. In fact, like Nami with all those assists, she's at 6k gold as well. She's on the same goal as the Jhin, by the way. So here we're of course roaming to the mid lane. There's a huge fight that breaks out in the mid lane. Here I'm popping the ult. I'm just trying to ignore the Malphite because he's really not the valuable target here. I'm gonna focus the low HP targets first, and then I'm gonna go onto the Malphite. Unfortunately, Jhin is here for backup, and I'm getting a little bit low, so I don't want to bite off more than I can chew. I'm just going to, you know, just back off and fall back onto doing the dragon. Fight breaks back out in the mid lane, so I'm trying to rotate back there to see if my team needs me. Turns out the answer is no, so I'm gonna instead just go ahead and secure the dragon with my volley bear. Now here Jhin actually pops the ulti. Volley bear has the smite ready, does get the dragon, but Nami decides to body block the Jhin ultis to prevent any steal from happening, so no possibility of a steal there. We did trade Nami's life for the dragon secure though, which is arguably worth to guarantee a dragon, you know, in trade for the support's life. Well, of course, you know, if Volley Bear did smite properly, this would not have needed to happen, so you could say that it's a waste as well. It's kind of a debatable situation as to whether it's worth it or not. But regardless, here we're headed back and we're thinking about boot enchant, and I'm thinking QSS this game because there's so much CC on the enemy team. There's the Diana ult, there's the Jhin root, there's the Morgana binding, there's the Swain pull as well. So a lot of QSS value in this match. Of course, you technically can QSS a Malphite ult if you predict it, but that's really difficult. Let's face the facts here. So I don't really count Malphite ult into QSS, but a lot of QSS value here, of course, is normally QSS or stasis when it comes to Vayne. Don't really have a lot of other good options when it comes to the enchant. So here Morgana was actually a little bit overextended. I was trying to see if I can catch her out. So here I am indeed just going in, condemning her away. She gets the root on me. I pop the QSS to run her down, get the kill onto her. Obviously, Jhin can do nothing about it. He's just gonna run away. Tower is now 1 HP as well, so we're gonna get the tower. Jin's trying to pull the same stunt again of trying to clear the minions with the ulti, but here you can see I'm going hyper aggressive onto the Jhin. You can see despite the fact he's under tower, I'm able to just burst him down, and this is a lot due to the fact that I have, of course, my Storm Razor. Here Malphite, you know, ults me, but I really don't care. He's alone, so he's not gonna be able to kill any of us here, and just ulting in is just basically gonna kill himself. Now here tower is really low, so Nami and Volley Bear tank the tower a little bit, and we take down the tier 2 tower as well. And here we're actually pinging for Baron because we have Malphite and Jhin dead, and just based on what we can see here, the fact that Diana is actually on 4k gold, and she doesn't actually have any items. We haven't seen her in quite a while. We're gonna assume that Diana actually went AFK here, so it's gonna basically be a free Baron because it's gonna be a 2v5. Because Diana hasn't been seen in the map for quite a while. Now, interestingly enough, we actually see Diana a bit later on in the game because she apparently either reconnected or is a bot. But here we're on to 3 items now, and honestly, at this point, 8-0 and 2 Vayne, almost 12k gold, miles ahead of anyone else on the team. It should be a really simple game from this point, so long as I don't make any kind of stupid mistakes. Should be a very easy game for me to carry, and I should be able to pretty much easily kill anybody on the enemy team. Of course, the main issue on the enemy team at the moment is basically only the Swain. Like, Swain is 5, 2, and 3, and he's actually really fed. He's actually almost getting Twin Guard at this point. But of course, Vayne specializes in taking down tanky targets, so it should be a lot less of an issue for us compared to if we were any other ADC at this point. So we aren't too concerned about that as well. Here you can see Fiora is actually pushing down the bot lane with the Baron, and you can see Swain, Malphite, and Jhin are all going for it. So in the meanwhile, you can see Diana's back in the game apparently. So here we're just gonna go ahead, get rid of the Diana, get rid of the Morgana as well, and easily just go ahead and continue pushing down. Now here, enemy team is trying to come and respond to mid. I'm just blasting whoever I can here, blasting the Jhin as well. I accidentally popped the blast plant in there. So here we see Vayne and not Vayne, we see Swain. Vayne and Swain rhymes, but we're gonna get rid of the Swain as well. Here Malphite just ults in, we're gonna get rid of the Malphite as well. Obviously we have true damage against the Malphite. We tank a tower shot, which, you know, does quite a big amount of damage to us honestly, but honestly the game is pretty much won at this point. We're just gonna take down both inhibs. And with the Baron buff, we're gonna just go ahead and end the game, even though there's the Nexus shield. Doesn't really matter, everyone on the enemy team is kind of dead. We have to make sure to secure the kill on Morgana before getting the dub, and we do. And with that said, I'm going to leave you guys with the stats as usual. Thank you guys so much for watching the video, and goodbye.